Jack, is it possible, even if you have enormous people skills, given the economic climate and the duress that the economy is under right now, is it possible to start a business in this country today?
I think it's one of the great moments. I think you've got people that are, if you've got an idea, it has to pass 2 screens. The first screen is, do you believe in it to your toes, from head to toe? Can you go after it with a passion and a commitment that's beyond belief? And secondly, does your product or service provide more for less? You could, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, have a widget that did more, cost only a little more. Nobody wants those today. Nobody wants to touch any replacement product that does more for you and costs more for you. They want more for less. There isn't a purchasing person, a design engineer, a clothing fabricator, a retail clothing person that doesn't want to give more for less. And so every new idea, but once you've got an idea, banks will fund you. The idea is great. If it passes that screen, you've got yourself a niche to get in there and really do something. And there's lots of people, good people, that have been shuffled around or are in companies and hate the way they've been treated. They don't like the fact there are a lot of people waiting for the day this recession's over to get the hell out of where they're working because they've seen the bad treatment of the people that were thrown out, and they don't like the fact they got their pay frozen by some stupid policy that says my best people have to just stay flat. You can't do that.
Right, and as a matter of fact, like right now may be the best time to find great people because they are either they've been laid off as companies have closed or they're being warehoused in the companies they're in. So if you believe that building a new company is contingent on how quickly you could put together a great team, now is a very good time for it. And also I think we've just picked up on the road, having just traveled around the country, an incredible sense of hunger and urgency. And when you're starting an entrepreneurial venture, what you want is that hunger and urgency. People are not talking about, sort of work-life balance as much as they used to. They're talking about making the most of themselves with a sense of urgency. You would want to hire that if you were
It was the biggest surprise. We went to 13 cities across the country, and everywhere we went, people want to start a business. They don't want to go back into that corporate thing, into that organizational structure where people have been tossed out, not taken care of, in raises. They want to control their own destiny. And people are starting up. In Kansas City, we saw 7 stories of people who were starting new businesses. It was fantastic.
So as you go around the country and as you see people with this hunger for, starting new businesses or going to work in new businesses, do you think there is a separation between what is happening right now on Wall Street, to use that phrase, that geographical zip code, and the rest of the country, in the sense that the rest of the country might be more amenable to realizing that there is, for lack of a better phrase, a new there. Instead of a 12,000 Dow, there's an 8,500 Dow. Instead of this particular salary, there's this particular salary. And they're accepting of it. But is the economic engine up top? Do you think they have accepted the fact that there is a new there?
Well, it depends where you are, Mike. If you're in Kansas City and we went to a place and the fellow showed us some condominiums. And
you still use those?
What?
Oh, condominiums. I thought you said condoms.
But it's such a reality to go to the Middle West. Beautiful 2-bedroom condo, $59,500, brand new brick building, very attractive. 3 and 4 bedrooms, $99,500. It's a whole different world. They've got, the jobs are holding together pretty well. The banks didn't go crazy. Those Midwestern banks didn't get in some of the trouble the local banks got in New York. It's a different society. And things don't cost anything like this here. And the people are incredibly stable and gracious, and it is just different than these coasts, and they don't have this anger that you read about in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the LA Times. They have a whole different sensibility about the way the country's going. And so it's a lot different. It just is, and to see the way you can live there on a much more modest.
Why do you think that is, Susie?
It's a cultural thing. I think it's a cultural thing. I think what we're seeing in New York is that there's a slower acceptance of the new frugality and its implications on their life than you see around the rest of the country. I mean, there's New York and New England also, and the rest of the country. I mean, it's maybe when you get over in LA, I mean, that's sort of it's a familiar story. But when we were traveling through the Midwest and the South on my book tour, we definitely saw more optimism, felt more comfort level with frugality, and sort of the cooling down of the environment all throughout the country, much slower here in this area.
So Jack, do you think over the past 5-10 years that all of the editorials in the papers that you just mentioned, the Times and the Washington Post and the Los Angeles Times about executive compensation and pay packages, are they onto something? Is it accurate that they were excessive?
There's no question. What's excessive? There's no question that the compensation models were wrong. The idea of instant pay for instant results is a bad idea. We didn't have it in companies. Most industrial America doesn't have it. Your stock options and your bonuses mature over 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. In our case, restricted stock vested in 3 years a quarter, 7 years a quarter, and the other half at retirement if you made it. So there's always a long tail on what you did. So you didn't do anything that was going to be the immediate thing. It wasn't solving a problem. The idea the banking game got into paying these enormous bonus, it invited risk. You were playing, when the investment banks were privately owned, they played with their own money. And they were very frugal in what they invested in, how they paid bonuses, how much they retained. When they went public 10 years ago, they started playing with your money, playing with other people's money. There's a play on that, and they did it perfectly. So they now took the bonuses up dramatically, and they encouraged more risk and bigger paydays instantly. 60, 70, $80 million, some guys make. Traders you never heard of, $25 million a year. It's insane.
What people got really mad about with compensation, and you see it everywhere, is what you have reported in the papers all the time, where a CEO who appears to have ruined the company is kicked out and leaves with a gigantic barrel of money. And that makes people enraged. And the reason why that happens is not like they're paying them to go away, but the reason why that happens is because when they made the deal and signed on, the board made a deal with the CEO. Should something happen and you don't last here, we'll make this so attractive to you, we'll give you this huge barrel of money, not envisioning that it could ever go wrong. And so people had a right to be angry about that, and boards now are going to have to rethink how they compensate people coming in the front door.
But Susie, in general, the media in general, except in April, went along with it. Society went along with it as long as the market was going up. And they were winning too. And so we're all sort of guilty of enjoying the fruits of the market while we're watching this all happen. We only got very mad when we lost our shirts in the market. People weren't screaming and yelling except in April.
Yeah, 401. Once the 401k
once the
started to go.
401k got whacked and everything else got whacked, everyone got mad.